right, it's 7 o'clock, and I'll call the regular Select Board meeting of Tuesday, July 26 to order. First item of business is approval of the minutes of our July 12th Select Board meeting.
Make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Looking at the July 12th minutes, are there any amendments, additions, deletions? I'm looking right.
Everyone's waiting, Heather. It's okay.
I have another small, tiny one. I think it was on line 26. It said minute, and I think it should say minutes. Sorry, I don't have it. Oh, I do have it open.
You are correct.
It is.
On line 26, motion to approve the minutes. That's all they were fabulous. I feel so bad picking little tiny things to correct, but
Really good, Heather. It's a good thing. It's your superpower.
It's like my 6th grade English teacher.
It's awesome, man.
You're good.
Zero's right in on it.
Okay, is there any other? No. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as proposed with one change, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the next item is approval of the agenda, and I don't believe we have any changes to the agenda, nor is there a need for meeting afterwards. So,
So moved.
moved?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So now it's time for citizen comments, opportunity to raise any issues that are not otherwise covered within the agenda. I know Rocket would like to speak.
Sit here.
Please, yes.
Good evening, everyone. Quick statement. I've reached out to many of, I think all of the members of the Select Board. And just for the community's context, my legal name is Rocket now. My childhood name is Ryan Kim, and I'm a 2014 college alumnus of Middlebury College. During my tenure as an undergraduate at the college, I served in an internship position for the town of Middlebury in 2011, and during that period wrote a report, which is still available online, that was later used in 2012 by the town in the community, I guess, as a resource for the creation of the Middlebury Business Development Fund. And spent a couple years away, finishing school, traveled, and am now living back in the area. Have legally changed my name to Rocket, but you'll see the name difference there. And am a freelance photographer and a videographer, and have been had my interest reignited, I guess, in the Middlebury Business Development Fund. I know that the community agreed to fund it for a period of 5 years, and there's some details that I'm still not quite sure about. I know that the fund was approved in 2012, but the position was not filled for another year, and so I don't know when the sunset clause finishes. And there's some there are many details that I'm still unsure about, and I just want to open it up publicly that make a statement that I have reached out to the Select Board, that I want people to feel like to know that I'm making a sincere effort to hear as many perspectives as I can about this. And I want to not only extend that to the Select Board, but also to the members of the Advisory Board of the Middlebury Business Development Fund, as well as to anyone in the public, that fellow citizens that may be interested in what's happening and what's going on there. Because as I understand that the office is funded collaboratively by 1 cent property tax increase, $72,000 contribution from the Middlebury College, and then I'm unclear about this detail also, but originally to also a $36,000 annual commitment by the business community, but I don't know if that any longer exists. So my name is Rocket. You can find me on Facebook. I post on Front Porch Forum regularly. My email is there, but also for the record, it's theprojectrocket@gmail.com. And again, I welcome any thoughts, suggestions, comments. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Rocket. Would anybody else like to avail themselves of the opportunity to speak? Okay. I see Ann. Is Ann here? No, there you are.
Just wanted to ask the Select Board to consider and hopefully approve allocating some parking spaces behind our building here for the August 9th election. And I think what I was looking at is hopefully we have some parking spaces already allocated, like a 30-minute parking. And I believe there's 5 there, and then there's 3 handicap accessible ones. And so what I'm looking to have approved is the 5 spaces that are not the handicap spaces, and then 5 spaces directly behind them on the other side. So it would be August 9th. I've spoken to Chief Hanley, and he says the police department are willing to work with me to get the signs up, so they would probably have them up kind of the night before, so early parking in the morning, and then they could come right down after the election. So that's what I'm looking for. Any questions?
Laura?
Would there be a time limit on those parking spots? I understand that you're reserving them for
The thought
voting.
isn't really to put a time limit, but to, if allocating them for election parking, that hopefully if people are coming in and going through, that they're out.
Here's what I think
Basically-
could happen. Somebody's going to come and they're multitasking, so they're going to park and they're going to go to the library and they're going to do their shopping, so they're still going to be there for an extended period of time. So would there be confusion about how long you can stay in that spot because you have voted, you know, but you're doing some other things too? Because your idea is to really incentivize people to
Hopefully
leave.
turn those over and make them available to
So
people.
I didn't know if a time limit needed to be added.
And a time limit added would be fine with me. I mean, we could.
Do you have the signs already prepared?
Well, the signs are prepared. I have them in the closet there if you want to see them there. They're big. They say election parking, so.
It's okay, we can try it and see how
I
it
could add
works.
something
It'd be
to
interesting
it.
to see.
Yes, Russ?
Is the request for the November general election as well, or just for August?
Currently, this space here has been allocated for the primary election, but I'm assuming this will not be a big enough space, and I would think we'll probably plan to use the new gymnasium on Creek Road for the presidential, so that would be different. Because then the gymnasium would be closed to kind of recreational activities that day, obviously, so you wouldn't have people there parking for that reason. So I don't think that'll be a problem.
Comments? Motion?
I'll move that we temporarily reserve the 5,
10?
10, well, it says, okay, 5 30-minute parking spots and 5 spaces directly behind them for Election Day parking from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on August 9th.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank
See
you
how it
very
works.
much. See you at the election.
Doug? We're ready for you, Doug. Review our Exchange Street sidewalk plans from, we're going from McIntyre Services to Catamount Park.
Yes, sir. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Doug Henson from Lamoureux Dickinson. We've been working on, started with the first phase of the Exchange Street sidewalk, which is proposed and continues to be proposed to be a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk starting at Elm Street, running along the easterly side of Exchange Street to the, this will get a little confusing, the south side of the south driveway of the building supply. And that'll be concrete, 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk with a curb, granite or concrete yet to be determined. Once we get to that driveway,
Nice.
It gets bigger.
there's the sidewalk, or the route continues across the driveway, across that building supply driveway. We're not proposing to, put an official crosswalk marking of that. It would be just 6-inch wide white stripes to define where that walkway is. Then there's a short stretch proposed for north of that driveway to a signed marked crosswalk across Exchange Street, roughly even with the south side of the building supply showroom building. And then a 5-foot wide sidewalk across the frontage of their storage lot, whatever I'm not sure what they call it, up to the south edge of the south driveway of Champlain Valley Plumbing and Heating. So that's the entire first phase. The phase we're working on now starts about here.
A little bit too far.
So,
Okay.
close enough. So, starts at the north edge of that south driveway and is proposed right now to proceed along the westerly side of Exchange Street. Still is a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk, separated from the edge of the Exchange Street by a 5-foot grass strip, and proceed all the way to the south side of Cadmount Park. So that's what we're proposing right now. I know there's been a fair amount of discussion over whether that should be a sidewalk or a bike path, as a multi-use path. We've prepared, and I think, did you put it in their packet? So presented a little bit of a write-up. I feel our job is just to provide you folks with the information of some pluses, some minuses going either way. In general, this concrete sidewalk is less expensive to construct initially, takes less long-term maintenance, involves less environmental impact just because it's only 5 feet wide instead of 8 or 10 or 12 or 14 feet wide that a multi-use path should be. Less right-of-way acquisition. Obviously, the disadvantages would be that a 5-foot sidewalk is not wide enough for pedestrian, walkers, runners, and bicyclists to pass, either going for a bike to pass a foot person or for them to pass in opposite directions. We are also of the opinion, based on what I've been told is old research now, that a sidewalk, trying to get bicycles onto a separated path that parallels the edge of a road tends to lead to accidents, because bicyclists assume, rightfully, unrightfully, that that's their road. Any driveways, especially like these, which are commercial driveways, the truck drivers don't typically pay much attention to who's on the sidewalk. Another advantage to a sidewalk is for pedestrians and sharrows down the road is that if a pedestrian is going along the sidewalk and somebody is about to whip into the driveway, he can stop, versus a bicycle, which takes a minute or two to get, or not a minute or two, but a second or two to stop. So in our opinion, the sidewalk is the better way to go as far as maintenance costs, construction costs, right-of-way acquisition. There definitely are some advantages to the bike path, or multi-use path. As I say, it's wide enough to allow users to pass going in opposite directions, to pass each other going in the same direction. It does cost more to build. It does typically require additional long-term maintenance. So that's what we're proposing at this point.
We did share with Doug some of the discussion that in the input the board has had about a shared use path. When we met with Doug and John Lemieux of the Vermont Agency of Transportation, the funding agency for this, and the agency said that they would consider a shared use path for this portion.
Great.
Are there additional steps that would need to happen in order for that to go through?
At this, the board would need to approve the pursuit of a shared use path for this section. And we'd also have to do some revisions to the conceptual plans,
Yes.
Doug,
Yep.
which,
Fairly straightforward. It's
Okay.
just,
But it's not like there's a huge amount of hurdles to go through logistically in order to make that happen.
from our side, no, I can't speak for the agency.
Right, okay.
Do you have something?
Yeah, Doug, I mean, your point is interesting about the flow of the bike traffic in the driveway. I hadn't really thought about that. Given that, have you sort of ancillary around the office or whatever thought about how the bicycle issue could be addressed on the street?
Well, I neglected to mention, and I apologize. If it is a concrete sidewalk, there will be sharrows, painted sharrows on the road. So sharrow is basically a
Right.
double chevron with a bicycle symbol.
Yeah, we have them around
Yeah,
here.
and so those at least encourage cyclists to use the road. There's no question that if there's somebody with an infant on a tiny bike with training wheels, they're probably going to be on the sidewalk, and I would be too. But that's the accommodation that we're proposing at this point for the cyclists.
What are the options for widening the road? Or, I mean, I realize that wasn't in part of your
Yeah,
your
that-
goal, but I didn't know if you had sort of ancillary discussion as to whether that could be feasible.
It certainly is feasible.
Mhm.
I don't know how far your grant will go, to be perfectly honest, and that's not really my concern at this point. But the travel lanes up there right now are roughly 11 feet, which is what has been requested for the southern section as well. So if you're going to widen, you really either need to widen a lot on one side or equal amounts on both sides. That could run into a few issues. There are several places along here where there are fairly significant roadside ditches. Might make
Right,
it
correct.
difficult to widen the pavement on that side. There's a wetland here, there's another wetland here, and another wetland here, that the wetlands office may say, no, you
Right.
can't.
Right.
We don't know the answer to that. We haven't, the sidewalk allows us to stay away from those wetlands, so we haven't had to worry about that.
And the second question is, and it wasn't clear to me from this drawing, what's the spacing separation between the edge of the road and the sidewalk, or are they literally on each other?
No, so it is a little unclear on this. The sidewalk would be 5 feet off of the edge.
5 feet off, so-
Throughout the length of it, with the exception of the section just north of Elm Street where you have the curve, there's no separation there.
Correct.
The curve
Yeah, and that's been
provides-
the part we've been uneasy about trying to figure out
Right,
what to do with it.
right, but the rest of it has a 5-foot separation.
Thank you.
Laura?
Well, there's certainly a lot of excitement from the bike ped community to have a multi-use path, and from, I think, Exchange Street businesses too, because they see that it would be appealing to invite that, to welcome that on Exchange Street. So I'd still like to push a little bit, toward that. And I'm wondering, again, about the cost difference between a sidewalk versus a multi-use path, because the materials are different. So is it possible that we could, I know you're incurring more expenses by making something wider, but because the materials are not as expensive, does it
In
get
rough
offset?
numbers, and these are 2014 numbers, a concrete sidewalk with its sub-base and all of the materials constructed is roughly, look at that,
Yeah.
roughly $150 a foot, a running foot, versus the multi-use path, which is almost $200 a foot. So it's not a huge difference. And unfortunately, maintenance, long-term maintenance costs, I can't quantify for you because it all depends on the winter and everything. But strictly construction, that's the approximate difference.
Okay, I think we're still going to have problems with driveways, whether the cyclist is on the road or they're on the sidewalk, and we're just going to have to train people, to watch,
I
which
agree.
we're trying to do. So I think we just teach people, but I think it still feels like most cyclists want to be off the road because of the size of the vehicles on Exchange Street and the speed at which they're going.
I can't tell you, this is the way you have to go. All I can do is provide this body
Right.
with information, our recommendation, and why we recommend it, and what some of the possible advantages or disadvantages are to the various services.
Susan?
We already have voted to support the shared bike path in Phase 3. I mean, I see different things that are cons, but I think we should really ask for that shared use path to continue through Phase 2. If the wetlands come up as a problem or anything else comes up as a problem, we can deal with that and always change our mind back. But I think the consistency of the path throughout is really a goal that I would like to have. And it's always good thing to ask V-Trans up front, and they can always say no, but I'd like to go for the gold and readjust back if we have to.
So I apologize, I'm the newest member here and have missed some of the past conversations, but why are we crossing the road and on the other side? I mean, just
In general terms, as far as this path or sidewalk, whichever, proceeding north out to Route 7,
And I think, are you talking about the intersection of Elm Street and then going up to RK Miles and crossing there?
Yeah, like
So there are site constraints on the Greg's Market side. The right-of-way is very narrow.
She
Yeah.
understands
And
that,
I
but she wants-
understand that, but I guess from my perspective, one, I wouldn't have anybody cross the road because of the truck traffic on the road, so I would keep everything on the side that you start on if I were building it. And two, there's less commercial driveways, less truck driveways on that side, so I didn't know if there was some other reason why we were crossing the road?
there are a couple.
Okay.
Look back to the,
To the site plan?
yeah, please.
Does it have to do with elevations and the ditches and?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, well, it doesn't even show on here because it's the next property north. There are a couple of properties as you move north that their state stormwater permits rely on the roadside ditches as their stormwater treatment.
Okay.
And we don't want to.
And that's what I was looking for.
Yes.
And I assumed, I'm sorry, I'm new and
No,
probably
that's fine.
rehashing stuff, but I was assuming there was some reason.
Right.
But it just
Yeah.
seems like it
And
doesn't make sense, but if there's reasons.
Realistically, driving up through there as you go north towards Route 7, the left side is a whole lot flatter. It really is. I mean, there still are going to be some challenges here and there, but nothing like
Right.
being on the other side of the street.
Yeah,
Yeah. Those are the primary reasons.
okay.
Doug, you're saying it's about $40 a foot more to do the shared use path?
Roughly. yes.
So for the entire length of our path, how many feet are there?
I'll look to my cheat sheet here for a second. So Phase 2 is approximately 2,700 feet. So I'm not good enough at math.
Do you know from RK Miles all the way out to the school, how many feet?
I don't know the answer to that, no. Sorry.
Just doing the math.
So
2,700 times, what was it, 42? Difference
Yeah.
is $113,400.
I guess my only concern is I hate to not get the path done. I don't have a problem voting and trying to do it, but if it comes down to we won't have enough money to get the path done, I think we got to get at least the pedestrians off that road. I mean, that's,
Yeah, I think we might have to say, same way, if there's a way we can look to try to advance and get that extra 113 or so, that'd be real nice. Maybe we'll luck out and the bidding will come in favorable. It won't be that much, but
That's
I
a
think we have
long
to-
ways down the road.
it's a long way down the road, yeah, right, and who knows what construction material and labor will do. But I agree, I think we at least need to get something in there, and this is a pretty solid something, and that's putting in at least that walkway. That's why I was trying to grasp at what the alternates could be for the bike, because it seems that there has to be something else that's an option. We haven't hit yet, but I would hate to squander the walkway while we're trying to figure that other thing out.
What do we have for a time constraint to have to make that decision? I mean, I would certainly like to see us, if we possibly could, keep it consistent as well. And I think, shared use path is a sort of an investment in your future in many, many ways. I mean, I think certainly bicycling as an alternative, source of transportation is something you want to encourage. But what do you think, what do we have for a time commitment that we would have to say yay or nay on it?
So I think one route forward might be to get an estimate together of phase one, an estimate of this phase two, and see where we are with the
Yeah.
grant funds. Go to the Agency of Transportation if the board is inclined to go that way, and ask them if we can reallocate the funding from the sidewalk to a shared use path within the constraints of that budget. But I think that phase one was a little bit less expensive. Did you do the cost estimates on that? Okay.
We have not done any construction cost estimates yet. That we would typically, upon completion of the conceptual plans, before they get submitted to the, completely submitted to the town and V-Trans, we would do a cost estimate.
So could we have a conceptual, a cost estimate based on the shared use path and phase one being the sidewalk?
Yes.
Relatively soon?
I don't want to sound cheap, but the problem with putting together a cost estimate, the only way to do an accurate cost estimate for any type of facility like this is to generate the cross sections all the way up through, and then do earthworks, and that's a fairly time-consuming process. We're more
So
than
are we
happy-
pretty well set on the conceptual plans for the sidewalk piece from Elm Street to McIntyre Services? And so we could go forward on that piece
Right.
Yes.
and then use an estimate for the remainder?
Yep.
So,
Phase-
back to
phase two.
Donna's question on what is the constraint. So you have, in your packet, you have this flow chart.
Yes.
So we are at the 25% conceptual design phase on this flow chart. John Lemieux from the agency said that if we were to go forward right now with the go-ahead on these conceptual plans, we're looking at 2020 for construction. So that's our time constraint, so we need to move ahead on our end, get through.
I guess that's a little breathing room.
Well, if we don't decide which way we want to go, we can't even go forward.
Right.
It might be 2021.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
even if we say, go ahead now, you're saying it's 2020?
That's what the state
Right.
is informing
That's-
us their timeline is.
That's
You know how
V-Trans.
quickly they move.
Welcome to V-Trans.
Do you have another example?
Oh, my
I
God.
might.
Now, when we were talking about phase three, and I don't remember who it was anymore, said that V-Trans does like the consistency of a project from, so not being a sidewalk to a shared use path to back to a sidewalk, that kind of thing, so that there would be some positive, at least
John
anticipated.
Lemieux from the state was very
Was very
receptive
receptive to that.
to the shared use path.
So again, I think if, we can always go back to the plans that we have, but I think to try and ask them, now's the time to ask V-Trans for it. It's not later.
Are we asking them to approve a change of design, or are we asking them to approve the increased funding? I mean, because they've already given
Not
the,
necessarily increased funding, but just the concept of the shared use path.
Correct.
I don't think that's the issue. I think it's, if we change, because we're going to run out of funds and we won't get to where we wanted to start Phase 3.
Not necessarily, because they may be willing to put that in as part of the project to keep it consistent all along the way. And the time to ask them to do that is now.
They're very pro that whole concept, I think, which
We
is to our
did
advantage.
talk about this quite a bit before we ever went to Phase 1 and Phase 2, and you changed, I wasn't at the meeting you changed, but,
Right.
and I'm subject, that's my fault. It's just, I mean, that's how projects go on forever and ever, is you keep changing. and-
So the conceptual, the idea
The
of
idea.
the sidewalk was in 2012.
Right.
And I think we can argue that times have changed on Exchange
Right.
Street from 2012. The increase in bicycle usage and pedestrians, offices out there and whatnot, so.
I mean, certainly all the testimony that we received by people who were here at our last meeting, there's a tremendous interest on the parts of people who work out there to have a shared use path. And I think if we're looking at a difference, I mean, I hear you about the funding, you don't want to lose the opportunity to do something, but if we're talking that 2020 versus 2021, I mean, you know, I don't see that there's a downside to our taking the time at this point to look at it,
Right.
you know?
The worst that can happen is they say no.
They say no, right.
And then we go back to the plans that are already in
I
place.
guess I was of the understanding that last time you came in and briefed us on Phase 1, and we kind of somewhat approved it, that we would be constructing in 2017. And so I guess I'm at that
2020
point of
is-
bitter disappointment, because we've got a pot of funds that's pretty limited, and by the time we get ready to actually construct, those funds will be worth a lot less than the present value of those funds. And so we're not getting value for our money, is what I feel. So, I mean, I don't have a problem supporting shared use. We wanted that originally, but when we found out it was going to cost more, we made a conscious decision to try to get what we could, because we had a limited pot of funds. So if you think we can get more funds, I mean, so just so you know where we're at, the business people are pushing out there, yes, and they're willing to pay some themselves, but when they find out that instead of 2017, that it's 2021 at the earliest,
But that doesn't change regardless of what we decide tonight.
well,
Unless we're going to vote to stall everything.
you're making assumptions that we're going to get the full funding for Phase 3, 4, which is, I mean, maybe you have some inside information, but we fell short. We got grants, but we've been building this out. The grants are building this out incrementally. And we haven't got that grant yet. And so right now, at the amount of money that I was tracking, we're not going to get to Catamount Park with a shared use path. So I don't have a problem going forward, just accept the reality that you're probably not going to get it by the time that you think you're going to get it. I'll be retired by the time that it's built out there.
I have always understood V-Trans timelines, and so to work with that, and there's times to ask for changes, times to just step back and stay out. I think if we want to do this, this is the time to ask. I think with Phase 3 and that being part of a larger project actually helps this Phase 2 section, whereas before we didn't have that. And so now it's taken as an overall project, and that actually helps.
We always had the project to go all the way out to, that did not change.
No, but we have we were awarded the grant, right?
Right,
So
right.
that makes a difference. Not being awarded the grant and being awarded the grant is a difference.
Okay.
You know, I don't have a problem with it. I saw so much support when we had the last conversation. I'm a little confused as to why we wouldn't continue talking about that and at least asking now. I mean, I ran into the same thing with V-Trans talking about crosswalks in East Middlebury, and I was told for 2 years that they're never going to do it. And I asked at the right time and the right 2 times, and they were like, yes, they folded it into a project, and they happen. And there are times where you can do that. It seems like a long shot, but you do it anyway and see what they say. They can always say no. The plans are in place for the sidewalk. We can always default back.
Seems to me there's 3 scenarios here. The first is the 5-foot sidewalk that we have, and we have the funding to do the length. Second option is we continue with that with a request for the additional to make it wider. Or the third is that we build the 5-foot, and at some point in the future we figure how to fund an extra 3 feet to put on the side. From an engineering perspective, what are the implications of that? Could we conceivably build the roadbed, if you will, that would be able to adapt the 8-foot at a later point, and then we add the extra 3 feet? Obviously, I realize there's a seam in an odd way running linear.
Right. Physically, yes, it's not a problem at all to physically put the base in that's wide enough to accommodate the sidewalk or and a multi-use path, either one. I think the issue that you're going to have with that is V-Trans is going to, in my opinion, V-Trans is likely to say, you're putting the base in, why aren't you building the whole thing now? Or if you're only going to put in the 5 feet, we're only going to pay for the base under that 5 feet. I'd love to be wrong, and I've been wrong more times than right, probably.
But I suspect you've probably been right on a few of them too, like that, working with V-Trans, so.
Yeah. And my other comment about going to a multi-use path now is the most time-consuming. There are 2 sections of that whole process that Kathleen had up before. The 2 that take the longest are right-of-way acquisition and environmental constraints. The environmental constraints, it's a document called the categorical exclusion. It's a federal document. And to get federal highway to accept those additional impacts, that will take some time. Categorical exclusion, which gets submitted right here. Well, that's what this is, this NEPA documentation. That has typically been taken between the agency working with federal highway. That is typically about a 6-month process right there. And the wider we go, the more right-of-way we're going to need. And that's the other big item. I'm not trying to sway you one. I just want.
No, I appreciate this because I'm in that pros and cons phase in my mind, and
Right.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, I can tell you right now, our office did a sidewalk in Essex Junction that was the fastest that had ever gone through what is now MAB, used to be LTF. That was 3 years. And that's start to,
Put in a sidewalk.
that's start to bidding. That doesn't even include construction.
Okay.
So,
Sorry. I'm
I
so
mean,
sorry.
you have to.
You just crushed my dreams.
I'm sorry. I want to be realistic here. I do think that the schedules that V-Trans is coming out with are a little bit pessimistic. You know, I'd like to say we could do it a little faster than that, but again, it'll depend on environmental and right-of-way constraints.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we accept the conceptual plans, but changing the sidewalk to ask V-Trans for a shared use path. That's what I would like to do.
So the intent is to proceed on with the sidewalk in the event they say no?
From the segment 3 of the Exchange Street sidewalk project from McIntyre Services to the entrance to Catamount Park.
But again, if V-Trans, we'll request that, but if V-Trans says no, we still proceed with the sidewalk.
Yes.
So I'll second that.
All in favor?
Is there a discussion?
Ross?
May I?
Yes?
I'd like to ask the board to support the idea of the shared use path. There's a lot, this is a growing business area out there, and businesses stand to benefit a lot. And I can tell you, as a beekeeper involved in the local farmers market, we're going to have to move the farmers market because of all the construction that the bridge is going on this year, maybe a couple of years. One of the places we're looking at is out possibly on Exchange Street, and a path that's safe for bikers and walkers would be a huge benefit. And I don't have to remind you, I think, that agriculture is one of the primary industries here in town and the county. So it'd be a real, and the other part of it, of course, is maybe you haven't heard, NASA just came out with an estimate that by 2050, sea levels are going to rise about 9 feet if we keep going the way we're currently on, the path we're on. The state has a goal of reducing fossil fuels. The town and the town plan has a goal of reducing fossil fuels. If we're going to be serious about avoiding the worst of this, we're going to have to invest in the infrastructure to provide support for people to reduce fossil fuel use. It's going to happen. It's not going to be easy. This is a prime opportunity for the town, for the board, to start moving in that path and to support this kind of a project. So I hope you will do that. And find the money to make it happen.
I'll send you the bill. Just so you know, it won't be done in time for your movement of the farmer's market. So I like the suggestion, and I appreciate the push. And we are supportive of it. I just hate to kill a project that's getting ready to have some legs when we've had some discussions previously. But any other comments? Okay.
Oh, there's some more.
Oh.
Adam Franco, I just wanted to commend the board on this shift of direction, and Chairman Carpenter for suggesting this last December when this project was first coming up with the shared use path. I've been bicycling out both to my employer's offices on Exchange Street as well as out to the Bridge School pretty much 2 to 3 times a week for all summer, and the segment from McIntyre Services out to Catamount Park is actually feels like one of the most dangerous with vehicles passing me. Segment 3 further out is also high-speed traffic, but the traffic volumes are less, so it has been slightly less challenging. So the segment 2 is, in my mind, really critical to having a safe means of getting out to these businesses and all the services out there. And I feel like it really will tie Exchange Street back into the downtown and make Exchange Street part of this vibrant town village area we have, rather than a sort of separate suburban thing that you can only get to by getting into a car and then stopping at one place. So I also had the opportunity last week while on vacation in Michigan to make use of a shared use path through a similarly sized town with small yield signs next to every single driveway. It worked pretty well. It was really fabulous, and that small shared use path had hundreds of people on it, literally, going back and forth to different parts of this town on a shared use path, both walking, jogging, and bicycle use. So I feel like this is a really critical segment that will improve our quality of life, provide tie-ins to our neighboring towns in Addison County, Haven and Bristol via River Road. So just want to thank you all for your support on this.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, we're going to call for a vote here so that we can move agenda forward. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Dave, we're ready for the...
Sure. Can we bring up a couple extra chairs?
Yes,
Myron
please.
and Jack stealing from over.
Thank you for your time.
That was a temporary term.
I hope we get the funding.
I was impressed,
Worried
Kathleen.
about. Let me hold that up.
So while they're queuing up, we could say we've had a ladder truck subcommittee that has been meeting regularly, and that's what we are going to be talking about tonight. So members of the fire department are here to put forth a proposal and tell us about the history of the ladder truck.
Absolutely. So let me introduce myself. I'm Chief Shaw. This is my assistant chief, Chief Myron Selleck, and our firefighter Jeff Carpenter. Myron is the committee chair, and he'll take over from here.
Yeah, the fire department created a ladder replacement committee approximately 2.5 years ago. We had a 5-person committee. We had 1 fireman that left the department. Jeff has been on the committee. Part of the committee's process, we had to do some long-term talking from a little distance, but Jeff's back now, and we've prepared a little presentation to help the board and the public see where we are and why we feel having an aerial in Middlebury is beneficial for everybody. So, Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
So I'll try and do this in 10 minutes allotted. But I teach at the college, so that might be a problem for me. So here's a little outline of what we're going to do. So we'll talk briefly about the history of having aerial trucks in the town. And then we'll talk about the case for continuing to have an aerial in the town. Talk about our process, what we've gone through in the last 2.5 years to get ready for this meeting. Then we'll talk about, I'm an economist, so we'll talk about the costs and benefits of repairing the current ladder, which is actually out of service, refurbishing it, or replacing it. So these are sort of the 3 paths we can go down. And then time for questions, I hope. Okay. So, history of ladders in the town. So we've operated an aerial continuously since 1948. The first truck we had, as known, was an American LaFrance. It carried a 50-foot Banger 6-man ladder. So this is sort of a ladder truck in name only that had a big ladder that we had to haul off there. It was cumbersome. We definitely don't want to go back this way. Right? The second truck was a 65-foot Pirsch, which was in service. We bought it used. It was in service for 12 years between 1960 and 1972. Then we switched over to Seagrave. We bought a 1948 85-foot Seagrave, and that was in service for 10 years between 73 and 83. We bought another Seagrave used, and that's actually this truck right here. It's exactly this truck. It was a 63, another 85-footer, and that was in service for 9 years between 84 and 93. In 1993, we bought a brand new truck. It's the truck that's in the barn right now. It's a 105-foot Pierce Arrow. It's been in service since 1993. So that's sort of where we're at. Okay. All right. So what's the rationale for keeping an aerial in town? So what's going to happen over here? There'll be some pictures that will show you some buildings that are pretty much impossible to get at without a ladder truck. Even with ground ladders, a lot of these you can't get at. Even here, Ren's house. And we've been to this place, but let me just say in general, there's 2 big reasons. The first is that ground ladders are just not sufficient in many instances, and this is true of commercial applications and residential ones. So for commercial applications, the way to think about this is that you need a ladder for a high-rise building. A high-rise building is defined in 2 ways. The obvious one, either it's a building that's over 2 stories tall, that's obvious, or it's actually just a big square footage building like Hannaford's. All right, so a lot of buildings, you can crawl up on the roof with a ladder, but you don't want to be up there if there's a fire inside the building because the roof is likely to collapse. What you need to do is just pour large amounts of water on top of this building. That's what you use the aerial for, all right? So we've done a little bit of a sort of unofficial survey, and we found at least 75 high-rise buildings in the town. These properties, you might realize, tend to be sprinkled, but the thing to remember here is that sprinkle is meant for fire suppression, not extinguishment, right? So to actually extinguish the fire for a big building like that, you're going to need the ladder. Okay? Residential applications, for example, here, you would need the ladder as much for its extinguishment as just rescue, getting people out of the building as quickly as possible. Okay? Another issue is just manpower. Unfortunately, personnel showing up for each call is variable with the volunteer service, and as a result, if you have to do a lot of applications with ground ladders, you're going to need a whole crew, a whole 6-person crew, which is sometimes a challenge. For a standard chimney fire and an aerial, you can do this with 2 people. One person to run the ladder, the other person to go up there and extinguish the fire. So think of it as using the right tool for the job. All right. So anything that's high-rise or tall buildings in this way, rescue, the aerial is the right tool for the job. Okay, so the committee work. Myron said that every time a bit of apparatus for the fire department is scheduled to be replaced, we form a committee. We formed this committee 2.5 years ago. We estimate that we have over 1,000 hours committed to the process here. And how do we spend our time? Well, one thing that we did is we went through and we came up with a list of specifications that are consistent with NFPA, that's the guidelines for fire protection, and our specific needs. So for example, NFPA doesn't say you have to have tire chains, but it's impractical to not have a truck in northern New England without tire chains. So that's something that we would want on our truck. So we spent a lot of time on that. We also spend a lot of time going around visiting vendors at conventions to see what they have on offer, or other towns. We've been up to Essex Junction, we've been over to New York State to see what other solutions fire departments have come up with there, and got really good ideas from them. We also spent some time soliciting some bids too, specifically 2 bids to refurbish the current ladder truck. And we had presentations from 7 vendors. And from those 7 presentations, we received 6 proposals. And we spent a lot of time after that narrowing those 6 down to 3 contenders, three firms that we think are true contenders here. So that's what we've been up to. Here's our assessment. So as of the middle of May, ladder 1 has actually been out of service. The waterway seal on the swivel has failed, so we can't actually push water through the ladder now. And we're not sure that if we put it up, it'll come back down. And so Virgins has been put on mutual aid alert to respond to us if necessary. So one thing we could do is just repair the truck and maybe get another couple of years of service out of it. But we're gonna make the claim that this probably doesn't make sense. We think the current value of the truck is about $75,000. To fix the swivel alone is $35,000. So to spend $35,000 on a $75,000 truck probably doesn't make a lot of financial sense, especially if you could get just another year or 2 of service out of it. So we would only consider that if it was absolutely necessary as a bridge to get us over to another truck. Okay. What about refurbishment? So as I said before, we solicited 2 quotes to refurbish sort of from the rails up the truck that we have now. Those bids were a lot higher than maybe anybody thought they were going to be. They were $430,000 and $497,000, and that does not include fixing the swivel. So add another $35,000 on top of this, and it includes no engine work. And with modern emission standards, there would have to be emission work and engine work done on this truck as well. So this is very expensive. And as you can see from the first slide, I was showing you those trucks that we bought used, we tended to get 10 years of service out of them. So again, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to spend more than half the cost, much more than half the cost of a new truck to get 10 years of service, half the life of a new truck. That doesn't seem to make sense to us either. And as a result, our recommendation is that we replace the truck. Okay. Well, how would you go about that? Well, I hope everyone knows or has some awareness of the Fire Equipment Replacement Fund. That's what taxpayers are accruing money in for just this purpose. So this fund was established in 1995 in cooperation with the town to replace the fleet on what was proposed to be a 20-year cycle. We would actually like to push that out, possibly to 25 years on a lot of our trucks because we tried to take good care of them. The ladder that we're using now...
fire, stand by for tone.
Sorry, guys. We've had that truck in service for 24 years. So some of the benefits here are, and one of the rationales for actually starting this, is that there are no immediate implications for the taxpayers to buying the truck because we have money in the bank. And we can take advantage of substantial cash discounts without having to bond for the truck. All right? So these are all rationales why this fund was put in place to begin with. So far, we've basically replaced every truck in the barn but the ladder with this fund. So all 3 engines, the 2 utilities, the tanker, and brush winder have all been replaced using this fund. The current balance in the fund is about 1.1 million. Here's the exact dollar amount if you're interested. And this is more than enough to raise to fund an aerial replacement. Okay. So what's the financial impact of the aerial? And so this is above and beyond the tax implications. So another way of thinking about this is, on the one hand, the fire apparatus is expensive. This is likely to be between $800,000 and $900,000. On the other hand, it might be the case that the aerial actually makes financial sense. Again, above and beyond implications to the fire replacement fund. One way of thinking about this is that there are big insurance implications to not having an aerial truck. So the ISO rating, which determines your tax premiums, I'm sorry, not your tax premiums, your insurance premiums will change. And as a result, the premiums for residential and commercial property owners will go up. And there's some chance, we've done some back of the envelope calculations that I can show you if you're interested, that would suggest that within even 5 years, it might make sense to actually have the truck rather than face the increase in the premiums to everybody in town. It's much cheaper to actually have the truck. Okay. New business is attracted to areas of lower insurance premiums and better fire protection. And the other thing to think about is that whenever we go out on a call, there's an opportunity cost to the employers of lost productivity. Like I said before, the fire truck is the right tool for a lot of jobs. It makes us much more efficient and it gets us back to work quicker. Okay? So moving forward. So step 1 is to finalize our specifications and obtain some pre-bids from the approved manufacturers. We've actually done this already. 2, what we're here for tonight is to request approval to solicit bids from the 3 finalists. Those firms are HME, Pierce, and Schmiel. And step 3, review those bid submittals and present a recommendation to the town and the fire department, and then place an order for a truck to be delivered by October 1st, 2017. We go a little bit faster than the trains.
He's going to build sidewalks?
Are there any questions? And I'm just going to have some more pictures up here, other buildings that would be impossible to handle without a ladder truck. Yeah.
I actually have a couple questions. When you were talking about the first several trucks, the lifespan seemed to be like between 9 and 12 years.
Yeah.
And the last truck you talked about was 20.
We've had it for 23.
So what's the potential lifespan?
So we would like, so NFPA says 20 years on these trucks, but like I said, we try and take good care of them, and so we'd like to push as many trucks as possible to 25 years.
So the first few trucks in the presentation were used pieces of equipment, and they only last about 10 years. The current truck we had, we bought brand new, and that's why we're in our 20th year of service with this truck. We've tried to stretch it as long as we can. And that's why the time with us is doubled, because it was a new vehicle.
Okay.
Yep.
And my second question is, if you replace this truck, do you sell the ladder truck that's not in operation now?
Yeah, we'll get whatever we can from it.
And those funds go into that?
I don't know exactly how does that work. Are they reinvested in the fire fund? Yes.
The fire fund?
Yeah.
If I heard you correctly, you stated that repairing the swivel, you might only get a year or 2 additional use out of the truck. Could you tell me how you came to that calculation of just a year or 2 additional use?
So every year the truck has to be certified. Is it every year?
It has a certification schedule, and so we'd have to, if we replace the swivel, we'd have to recertify the truck. The $35,000 repair cost does not guarantee passage of the certification. So the rest of the truck is what is the other part of the problem. The hydraulic hoses that are in there and the lines are all 25 years old. So those all have to, we can fix the swivel, but the hydraulics in the truck are at the end of its useful life. And so that's where our point is being that if we fix one component, the next component's going to go, and we'll be back here again for another $35,000 or $40,000 next year.
We've all had cars like that.
And actually, Ross, this process started before the swivel broke because it was looking like the truck was nearing its point where it needed to either be refurbished or replaced. So they've been working on this. The timing is pretty good that they're that far along because the swivel just broke 2 months ago, maybe?
Yep, a couple of months ago.
We had actually looked at it, we asked them to look at the cost of a refurbish, and I think we all had in our mind a $300,000 thereabout range. When it came back at $400,000 plus $500,000, that was suddenly a take back because, as you saw, there was roughly a 10-year life expectancy out of these used trucks they purchased previously. So we're looking at 10 years at $500,000. So essentially, you add another $300,000 to $400,000, and we get another minimal 15 years. And the standard that Jeff references is generally based on larger use areas. So they do take care of things quite well, plus the vehicle is just not as heavily used. And so the expectation of a 25 years, I think, is something we really want to aim for. And I think this committee's done a good job at trying to looking at the things that have failed. A big part is corrosion in this region, and doing a good job, I think, of expecting from the manufacturers that there will be much better corrosion inhibitors on it so that the vehicle will last longer. So it struck us as just the best value for money. It's by the idea that spending this much money is a little bit, sets us back. It just seems to be the best value for money for the town for the next many, many years.
So I just, this is great, by the way, and fabulous. I just have a concern about how long it's going to take to get it, and being without and relying on Virgins, and just wanted to know how you guys felt about that. And
Yeah, our concern is right there with you.
Okay.
I sleep a little lighter on one side each night because of it, but the City of Virgins is there. They're 20 minutes, half an hour out.
Yeah.
We've taken steps. We've bought an additional nozzle that we're going to put on the end of the ladder, and we're going to deploy hose like they used to do in the 50s up the ladder in the event that we have to use our ladder. So we've taken steps. Once that part comes in, it's a specially made nozzle because, ironically, they don't do that very often anymore. And so once that comes, we'll be able to deploy some water, but it will nowhere near be the same volumes that we were once capable of doing.
so is this timeline as fast as we can move it along at this point?
Yeah, mine knew that.
Pretty
And
much,
that's
yeah.
because the
Depending on-
manufacturer's got to build
Right.
it, right?
Depending on manufacturer, 9 to 12 months from contract signing.
So there's nothing we can do on our end to help speed that up?
Nor, and nor do we want to encourage them to build more rapidly
Right.
than they're accustomed to. Right.
Okay.
Like Chairman Carpenter mentioned earlier, we had actually started this process, and we'd met and created the subcommittee, and we're able to start the process of, do we talk about replacement or refurbishment? So a lot of that groundwork actually has speed this up. If we came to you without the background of the previous 2 years, it wouldn't be 2 years, but it'd be easily 6 to 9 months just to do that research. And departments we visited, manufacturers we've gone to.
Jeff, we did have a couple questions, if you wanted, did you queue those up, just as?
So somebody talked about, is anybody interested in a quint? Does anybody care what a quint is?
Donna?
I had suggested a quint.
Oh, okay.
I figured when you didn't want one, that was a pretty good reason, so
Yeah,
you could
so-
certainly cover it if you'd like.
So just quickly, this is kind of complicated. I mean, the big thing is that on a single axle truck, it's going to just be too much weight for our roads, especially if we get off into dirt roads. And 75 foot on the quint is just not big enough, all right? But we can talk more about that if you like.
Good.
This is actually some projections that David and I did. Again, these are back of the envelope calculations for just the balance of the fund if people are interested, and make sure that we're just not running this thing down and then never be able to use it again. So this is just goes by year, and these are rough estimates of the inflow based on the grand list, increasing at a very modest rate of 1% a year. The estimated cost of an aerial is $850. The next truck that will be replaced is our engine 1, and that will be in 2019, and then our engine 2 in 2022. And you can see the fund is always solid, so it's not going to be an issue. Oh, well, I don't want to get into the weeds with the insurance stuff.
Yeah, right. We'll leave that out.
Are there any other questions? Okay.
Make a motion.
Somebody, would you like to make a motion?
I will make a motion, because I want to keep these guys on the good side anyway, because I really do appreciate
You
what
need to
they
do more than that, I'll tell
I
you.
really do appreciate it. We all as a town appreciate what you do and realize how much dedication it takes to do this. It's not an easy task you do, especially since it's only one of the many jobs you wear. But anyway, I want to make a motion to endorse the Ladder Truck Committee's recommendation regarding the process and timeline for acquiring a replacement ladder truck for the Middlebury Fire Department, and by extension for the town of Middlebury. I'd also like to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to formally solicit bid quotations and associated technical documentation for this acquisition. And as per the recommendation of the Fire Department and the Ladder Committee, the solicitations will be made to the Pierce Fire Apparatus Company of Appleton, Wisconsin, Smeel Fire Apparatus of Snyder, Nebraska, and HME, which is Hotel Mike Echo Fire Apparatus of Wyoming, Michigan.
Wow. I'll second that complete motion.
Good. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Nice presentation, Jeff.
Great. Thank you.
Even for an economist.
Jim?
That was good. I like that.
Hello, everyone. I'm here tonight to give a brief update on the schedule for our bridge replacement and rail project. I guess the good news is that they, even if we were to face a delay here, that our bridges will be replaced and our rail line fixed before the Exchange Street sidewalk is in place. So,
Grind.
I don't want to speak too soon.
No, that's
Jim, with a reminder.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, thanks for making our date.
You've seen and read the overview that I've given there, the brief summary of where we are with the schedule. There is a concern with the schedule. Let me just briefly fill in the background here. For the past 6 months, ever since we cleared the vertical clearance issue, the schedule has been that the preparation work, which is the creation of a drainage system, a new drainage system for the rail line, and the building of an access road off the bottom of Water Street would take place in the fall. And the replacement of the two bridges, Merchants Row first, Main Street second, and the construction of the tunnel would take place in 2017. And the regrading of the rail line south of Merchants Row Bridge and north of the Main Street Bridge would take place in 2018. That's the schedule we've been communicating internally and to the community for the past 6 months, and VHB and VTrans have been communicating that schedule along with this. A month ago, we received final engineering plans for the first phase of the project. This, again, is the drainage system and the access road without schedule. And so the LPMT wanted to review those final plans with VTrans and VHB, naturally to go over the details of the plan, but with the schedule in place too, not just for Contract 1, which is the first phase of the project, but for Contract 2, which is the big dig, the main phase of the project. There was some hesitation about providing those schedules and the accuracy of the schedules that VTrans and VHB were working with. They said that they would go to work on revisiting the schedule, making sure it was accurate, and would get back to us. As the days ticked by without an updated schedule, I think there's certainly growing concern on the part of the LPMT about the accuracy of the schedule and the dates we've been provided with. Rubber hit the road when Rich Tatro, the Deputy Secretary of VTrans, informed us last week that they were concerned about a delay in the schedule, and pointed to two reasons for that delay, one being the right-of-way process for Contract 1, which they had underestimated or not accounted for accurately in laying out the schedule for this first phase. And number two, which I think this concern runs a little deeper, is that the schedule really hadn't been, for either phase, hadn't been fully vetted by all the folks within V-Trans, and more importantly, I think, by the contractors. So we're left with the impression that there's really not a realistic working schedule in place here, or we weren't working with a realistic working schedule. Secretary Call, at that point, we were told was appointing Kevin Marcia, who is V-Trans's chief engineer, to form an ad hoc project team to take an immediate look at the schedule, pull together folks from within V-Trans and VHB, and to, within a short period of time, a couple weeks or so, to come up with a schedule to share with the town. That process just got underway this week. So I think, that news was not well received in town, and as a result, Chairman Carpenter has scheduled a meeting on Thursday with Secretary Cole, with Rich Tatro, and with the executive V-Trans team. And Dean George will accompany the chairman to that meeting, and Kathleen and I will be there as well to meet with the folks from V-Trans. I think the message that will be delivered there will be, one, we need a firm commitment to a date by which we will see a revised schedule. Number two, we need a firm date by which we will see a revised agreement between the town and V-Trans, which I think is a critical piece of contractual work to get done, and the LPMT's been waiting for 6 weeks for a response from V-Trans on that. So those are two specifics. I think beyond that, the message is going to be the town is all in on this project and has been for some time. V-Trans, you need to be all in on this project too. We need to see an aggressive all-hands-on-deck approach to the schedule, and we need to see a public and a firm commitment to that this is an urgent number one priority within V-Trans, which is what they've communicated to us in the past. So we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. I think that the meeting on Thursday should be a good opportunity for V-Trans to hear the town's concerns in full force, and for Chairman Carpenter and the rest of the team to learn what V-Trans is proposing here in terms of schedule and next steps. A frustrating position, I think, for us to be in, who have been working hard to make this project work over the last many months, and also building trust and credibility in the town about this project and about the schedule. It's not just V-Trans's credibility or VHB's credibility that's at stake here. It's the town's credibility as well, and the folks who are on the street every day communicating to the public about this. So there's going to be a lot of effort and a lot of pressure brought to bear on getting the schedule and having the work proceed as quickly as possible. So that's really the update at this point. I'll be happy to take any questions about where we are with the project now.
So when you say schedule, do you mean the start and that the length of the project is still estimated? Or are we talking both the start of the project and also the potential length of the project?
I think both at this point.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly the start date, which is kind of, is right front and center, but I think also the length of the project as well.
I think it's also some benchmarks along there. The case in point is we've been waiting to receive the 85% design phase for the second phase, which we were under the impression was going to come at the same time as the first. Only to find out that was pushed back quite a bit to what seems to many of us to be a rather arbitrary date. So, and the reason that's so critical is because we as a town need to communicate, because obviously there's a lot of interest, but there's also some anxiety about this project with the different people who are close, knowing when will this work happen, how it's going to impact my ability to get into the business, or the very factors, or in the case of the church, they're working right next to it. So that's what the 85% should tell us. That's a critical benchmark we need really soon. So,
well, I imagine a contractor can't give you any kind of firm schedule until they see an 85% plan. So if they haven't seen that plan yet, how can they come up with a realistic schedule?
Well, we suspect, well, we can only know, the contractor has to be extremely frustrated right now
Yeah.
because, as you know, I mean, it's a choreographic job. They have to be able to anticipate when they're going to need materials and equipment and labor, and they can't do that until they see something that they're going to be building. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
I think, Heather, the plan here was to use this CMGC process, which basically brings the contractor up into the design phase, right? And that was the innovation that was going to make this project different and kind of move along in the right way. That doesn't appear to have happened, you know, where you have the contractors involved, you know, in the design phase. And I think that's, V-Trans would point to that as one of their failures in this project, is that they didn't understand how to make that process effectively work. And they'll own up to that. That doesn't change the way things are right now, but it's an admission of partly where things went wrong.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
So when we eventually get to the point where we know what a more realistic schedule is, do we have anything that tells us how long what we have will last? You know, what we're driving over now, and, you know, we with the ladder truck, we
Yeah.
just talked about useful life.
Yeah.
We're probably beyond useful life with these bridges, so any further out we go, we risk.
That's a concern. We don't
Yeah.
have, there's no definitive date.
So we haven't had a study on it that,
No.
or anything. Okay.
That may be something to talk to V-Trans about on Thursday. It's certainly, you know, it's, that's the number one concern when you push everything else aside. It's the safety of those bridges and the safety of the rail line. I mean, that's why we're doing, this job is being taken on in the first place. So that might be, depending on the extent of the delay, that might be something to look into as well.
One other point I thought about, and it's not immediate with the bridge. I mean, the bridge project is, you know, these bridges are approaching a pretty catastrophic point potentially. I mean, I could envision a time when we have to weight limit what we have downtown. One of the things I'd like to have asked is, there is intention, there's plan to have passenger rail service return here. We've heard 3 years, but it seems like it's largely waiting for this project to be done. What impact delays could have for getting that? I mean, one of my fears is that Amtrak chooses to put their resources somewhere else. This isn't completed in a timely manner, and they certainly have the right to do that. So we're bringing up the point that is an ultimate benefit that
Yeah.
deliver for us.
Absolutely. That, you know, V-Trans is telling the public 2020 for the Ethan Allen service, but they're privately looking to get it done in 2019. So again, depending on what we're looking at here in terms of delay, that could be an issue. You know, as Middlebury and Virgins Ferrisburg were selected as the 2 station stops.
And Burlington.
And Burlington, of course. Yeah, on the way.
Also in your packet, there's a letter from the board to Secretary Chris Cole that I would appreciate your support in signing, so that I can take it with me when we meet, to make it a very strong statement that we need continued funding for a community liaison. I think it's a huge benefit to the community to keep the community informed, and without that funding, we won't have the position, and so I would appreciate support on that, too.
Pen's ready to go.
I would make one more comment, going back, that, you know, I think the meeting on Thursday, obviously, is a very important meeting. I have no confidence whatsoever in a revised date. The schedule for this project, actually, when I went back to the contracts, which I asked to see, the scheduled date for this start of this project was 2014, right? So the dates have been revised and revised and revised. And each time we're told that they're looking at it more carefully, more carefully. Sue Minter said it, Secretary Cole has said it, and not one of these dates has been accurate. So it's a lack of confidence that what comes out of the Thursday meeting will be any more accurate than any of the other dates we've heard. The one thing I think that's come out of this that is incredibly important is that they did not bring in a contractor early enough, the actual contractor, to look at whether or not the engineering plans, which are now, over $4 million in engineering plans? And the engineering plans have gone on for over 2.5 years, and we still don't have a plan that's accurate. I think you can bring in the contractor now, but there's a lack of confidence on my part that any of the engineering plans are good. If they were, then we would have probably been well ahead of this project by now. So I think Thursday's meeting is really important, but I think one of the things that should be stressed is that there are government projects all over this country that are begun and not finished. And the confidence in our public officials to do what is right, to give us accurate information, they've lost that confidence as far as I'm concerned, at least with me. And I would assume in this community as well. All of our meetings that we've had, and we've had many of them, people have shown up to these meetings to learn about this project. We've given them incorrect information, not our fault. But nonetheless, we bear a responsibility to come up with the correct information. We're hearing about a farmer's market being moved. We've had the Festival on the Green moved. There's been a cost to this community already, a financial cost. And, I would talk to them about that. How do you recoup those losses? Because as they say, there's no business interruption insurance. That may be, but I would hope that at that meeting, a really strong tone of voice is put forth, that this is just not acceptable. It's not acceptable by our public officials, and it's not acceptable as a piece of information to us. It shows incredible gross incompetence, is what it shows. And that's a lot of tax dollars we're spending. Wow. Anyway, I'm very upset by this.
I think we all are. Yeah, no, exactly.
So, I'm happy to make a motion that we accept the letter. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
So that we accept the letter as written and we sign it. And I really, really hope that this does not indicate that we're going to potentially lose Jim. We're just trying to,
We wanted to make sure
For
that
the-
it was included in the next contract.
Okay.
It was.
because that would be very,
Question.
okay,
I'll second your motion.
okay. Sorry, that wasn't a very clear motion.
It's okay. I think we got it.
Any other comments?
I think Heather's point about the life of the bridges as well as the rail itself is critical, and I am sure you're going to reflect that in your conversation. Yeah, I'm frustrated too because it's a breath holder.
I know when I received the information, I had to go for a walk, so it's unacceptable, and I got it.
Well, we even think of, we just had a discussion on emergency services, and one of the ironic aspects of it is that, if we have to weight limit those bridges in town, a response to a lot of the downtown quota for the fire department suddenly goes up by a minute or two. They're around the corner technically, but it's a long ride for them to get there.
Yep.
So, these bridges have been like this for a long time, and it's just a snail's pace of trying to address them. It's painful.
Okay, I'm going to try to move our agenda.
We have to vote.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Calling for
okay.
a vote here, so.
I was waiting to
All in
sign
favor?
until we
All in
actually
favor,
officially
signify by
voted.
saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
I can sign?
You can sign. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for that, I appreciate it.
I'll see you Thursday. I think we're ready for John. I don't do very well at getting you on the schedule at the right time, John, and I usually keep a pretty good time.
Well, that's quite all right.
You just like to hang out with
You're a neighbor, so you're always forgiven. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Select Board, for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Library Building Committee. Kevin Unrath is right behind me, and he's here with me if you have questions you'd like him to answer. The Select Board and the Board of Trustees of the Ilsley Library created the Library Building Committee, and it's been at work for 2 years. I could spend much longer than you'd like telling you the many reasons why the library needs to be renovated, and maybe it needs to be added to. But I don't think that that's what I'm here for. But I would like to invite all of you to ask me or ask Kevin to show you around the library so that you have a better understanding of the problems which it faces in trying to fulfill its mission to the children, the seniors, and the families of this community. Over these past 2 years, we've tried to keep you informed of what we're doing. We have surveyed the Middlebury and Greater Middlebury community in writing and on the internet and in public meetings. We've received the recommendations of the staff. We've worked with an internationally prominent library consultant. The Ilsley Board has created a long-term strategic plan, which was essential to the work of the library building committee, because we really felt that we could not go ahead with the responsibilities that you'd entrusted us with until the library board was clear about what it wanted to have the library capable of in the next 15 or 25 years. We invited 13 architectural firms to tell us their qualifications to come up with an initial design proposal. 9 of those firms responded, and we invited all of them to make proposals, and all of them did. We interviewed 4 of those firms, the ones whose proposals we thought were best, and then we narrowed the choice down to 2 firms, and we went back to each of those firms and asked them if they could find a way to reduce the costs of this initial architectural service. Both of them did that and reduced their fees. Now, we would like to offer one of those 2 firms, the less expensive one, a contract to begin the work. The cost of that work would be $41,600, which is $17,000 less than its original bid. The library trustees have voted to pay $10,000 of that $41,000 fee. Over the past several years, this Select Board has appropriated $236,000 in capital funds for the repair of the library roof. Ilsley has spent $196,500 of that amount, leaving $39,500 unspent. These numbers have been confirmed by the town manager and the town treasurer. Is that Jackie's?
The town treasurer.
And the town treasurer, and confirmed also by the library director. So I'm here now to ask that you reallocate not all that $39,500, but $31,600 of that, so that with the library's $10,000, there'll be a total of $41,600 to employ the architectural firm to develop initial architectural design for the renovation and perhaps addition to our library. I'm glad to try to answer your questions.
Can you tell me the name of the firm that you chose?
Of course. Well, let me not speak completely out of school. I think it's pretty clear. We came down to 2 firms.
Okay.
One is Gossman's Bachman Architects from Montpelier, and the other is a firm whose name I'm going, Holtzman Moss Patino from New York, which is a firm that does libraries all over the country. Because of the costs, I think it's pretty clear that the library building committee will choose Gossens Bachman. But the library building committee decided not to make a firm decision until it knew for certain how much money it had to spend. And in order to know how much money we have to spend, Jackie, Kathleen, and Kevin need to do some work, and I needed to come before you to ask you to reappropriate or reapportion, what's the right word?
Reallocate.
Reallocate that money.
Okay. Kathleen, procedural question. That money, is that still left in the library?
That's in the capital funds that goes from year to year, reserved for the capital funds.
Okay, so that money's still out there.
Jackie confirmed that.
Yep. I remember it from when we did the capital budget review. So.
Okay.
So-
Comments?
I think that's good diligence, and it seems very well thought out and reasonable. You're asking for us to just reallocate what you already know is there, so I would support that.
I think it's an appropriate use of the funds because the money was there to help the building anyway and improve the building, so reallocating it for that another type of building renovation is good. I approve that.
And that was for the roof, and the roof is all done, right?
Well, the roof is not all done. Some of the roof, most of the roof work was done, but the the trustees and the director of the library decided not to do some of that work since we were contemplating renovations to the entire building, and thought that it would be much more efficient to do it at that time if we go ahead with a renovation.
Can I ask a question? John, question for you. You've got the two firms that you're looking at, two architectural firms. In allocating this money and coming up with the money to hire one of these firms to come up with plans, is one of them going to cost more to do than the other? Is that why you're looking at one as opposed to the other?
Yes, there's a very substantial difference
Okay.
in the cost between the two firms. I think that most people on the committee actually thought we would get a more exciting proposal from the more expensive firm, but we did not feel that it was appropriate to spend that money initially, and the full cost would have been higher for their architectural services than the full cost by the Vermont firm.
I'd be happy to make a motion
Go ahead.
that we reallocate $31,600 from the library, Ilsley Library's capital improvements budget to so that the library town committee can consider offering provisional approval pending further refinement of their request at their next meeting. Is that how it goes? I'm trying to combine two different things that were there of what we know now versus what was in there.
Maybe to help fund architectural.
Architectural services, that's fine.
Yeah, we'd like to make a commitment, we do, to this firm.
Right. So I think that's where I was trying to go, but I was trying to use Kathleen's language in there too, so.
Good.
To provide, to reallocate the capital improvement funds to the
The architectural
to fund
firms.
architectural services contract.
Correct. That sounds good. That would be my motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Well, thank you. I hope you'll be as agreeable when we come back for more money in the future.
Exciting.
Thank you so much for your time.
I believe Drew Campbell and Kathleen Nelson.
Sit here.
Hi, I'm Drew Campbell. I'm the chair of the Middlebury Dog Park Committee. Thank you for your past support. Last night, we went before the Development Review Board, and they approved our conditional use permit. Today, we're here for Kathleen and I have been going back and forth to agree on a management agreement for the park, just to lay out the responsibilities of the town versus the responsibilities of the committee. We came to an agreement. I think you've all received copies of that.
We have. Are there any questions on the language or the responsibilities? It seemed fairly clear cut that it's primarily your responsibility.
Right.
If there's no
What the
question.
ramifications are if those responsibilities aren't met.
Yes. And actually, the committee brought forth that language. We wanted ramifications to be in there. So in the future, if there's a different makeup of this committee, that they stay motivated and keep the park open, because we want to ensure this park is open for as long as it can be, forever. So.
Well, I'll
Entertain a motion, yes.
I would move that we authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the management agreement for the Middlebury Dog Park on behalf of the town.
second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Drew and Kathleen, thank you very much for all the work on getting the dog park going, as well as your entire committee.
Thank you.
Been a lot of energy behind it.
Yeah.
It's been our pleasure.
Yeah. Do I sign that now, or should I meet with you later?
Meet with you later. Not later tonight.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're Tom.
Yeah,
I was going to say, you don't look like Thomas Murray. I'm looking. Please.
So, first of all, thank you to the Select Board for having us tonight, and thank you, Kathleen, for getting us on the agenda almost at the last minute. We appreciate it. My name is Karen Kotecki. I'm the right-of-way manager with Vermont Gas Systems, and with me tonight is Tim Vachereau. He is the construction manager for Vermont Gas. And we are here tonight to review and hopefully gain your approval for 2 easements, distribution easements, where we're proposing to install a 2-inch gas pipeline on 2 parcels that are owned in fee by the town. I don't know if you want a quick update on the overall project, the transmission, or the distribution. If you'd like to hear anything, nah, okay. But in terms of distribution, we're really going to town here in Middlebury. We have, I think, 23 easements completed. We've got 45 that are in progress, and we've got about 600 leads that the marketing team is working through. So it's really encouraging that the folks in Middlebury do want our services. The easements. Do you have maps or? Oh, there. Oh, perfect. Okay.
This is the 77 Main Street. That's the town office.
Right, and Tim, I don't know if you want to kind of describe it. Sure. We did flag it today, too, so when you leave tonight, oh, you probably saw it already, okay.
Yeah, we're here. So along what we're looking at is, typically we install gas lines in the town right away, so that would generally be between the curb and the sidewalk. This parcel here, you can see that the property line almost comes right out to the curb line, so there's really not room to construct in the private right-of-way that's left outside of your property line. So what we're looking at doing is, if you look outside here, actually we flagged it, is to go in the front here on the north side between the sidewalk and the curb, somewhere around this corner right here, transition, because you get power, you've got some other structures out there, is to shift to come to the inside of the sidewalk, make our way toward the back parking lot. My thought was we would try to stay as close to that sidewalk as possible on both sides, as we typically do. So that's really that's the major one here. That's the
Right,
line.
and then the other one is at 0 Main Street, which is the lot you own behind Printer's Alley, and we have, there's a couple different landowners that we've secured easements with, and Middlebury Area Land Trust is reviewing an easement now, and then you're the last lot there before we come around the buildings.
So this is Printer's Alley is right here.
Correct.
And this goes down behind the
Okay, so
National
it's,
Bank.
right, and it's going, just hugging the buildings in the back until it comes out to feed the very last building there, and I don't know what, I think it's 50 or 52 or 56, something like that, the very last building. And it will feed all these buildings, all these properties as well. So those are the two easements.
So I did forward these to Town Council Benj Putnam on Friday. He does have several concerns that we're going to have to work through with Vermont Gas, but to get the process underway, he suggested that we go forward with the 1061 notice, which is required whenever the town lets an easement.
So,
Oh, go ahead, I'm
can
sorry.
I ask a question? Sure. All right. So, in the second paragraph of the easement, where it
Which
talks
one?
about, well, I think they're both the same.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same except for the description.
I think that this wording is the same in both of them. The first paragraph where the right to construct, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then the last one, and abandon in place pipelines to be used. I have a problem with that. So I guess if council is reviewing, can we take a look at that?
So
I know
you
we're,
would prefer not to abandon in place, to have it removed.
yes.
Okay, just, and, yeah, and other landowners along the way, both transmission and distribution have, voiced those same concerns. From an environmental perspective, and this is what we're told, from the A&R and natural resources, it's less of an impact to the environment to dig it up. So, I mean, I can get you more information on that. Tim, can you speak to anything about, the distribution, it being that big of a deal, and how it's like
It's just
cut off?
more disruptive, that's
Okay.
all. You could segment, you could cut off sections, and you could pull out straight sections of pipe, but where there's T's and there's other fittings, that may not,
But that's certainly not a deal breaker, so, but I think
Yeah,
that we should probably get
I
you
understand.
and Benj, because I've worked with Benj already on this project too, the appropriate information that.
And we're talking about a potential that exists sometime in the future. I guess,
Sure.
just from my own personal experience, would rather see disruption in removing something because, 50 years from now, you go to do a construction project and you find all this old abandoned infrastructure in there and nobody knows what it is. And it was, even the gas fuel tank that was hit, putting the line in, figuring out who owns it, who pays for it. I would just, if things are to be abandoned, I would request that companies remove, if they're gonna be abandoned, remove them, not just, or another alternative, you can pump concrete down them and
Right.
And abandon them that way.
Okay.
There's other options, but
Sure.
my request is we see language that the pipe is not just left existing in the ground.
And I don't think the impact would be as great for a 2-inch distribution pipe versus,
The
a
large,
12-inch or a
yeah.
16-inch, yeah, so.
we have written procedures on how we would retire
Okay.
that, which would, require, purging the gas out with air, so making sure there's no residual in there, and foaming the ends, so things wouldn't fall into those pipes, create, further erosion or undermining later. So we do have those
But somebody's-
procedures, we could refer that in the easement, or we could
Somebody's digging
take
that
out.
up, 50 years from now, and they come across a pipe and they don't know what it is, and,
Sure.
it's just my request.
I've run across a lot of abandoned pipe, and it's always a surprise and it's always causes trouble.
I'm really glad that Heather did mention it, because if we are calling this a bridge fuel, which still question using it at all, and I have been on record with opposing the pipeline, that I think it's especially relevant that we address what she is stating.
Sure.
Russ?
Since ratepayers are paying for this project, and the project cost has changed significantly since it was first introduced, can you talk about how it's going to impact Middlebury ratepayers?
I'm not the appropriate person that can speak to that. I can certainly take your name and have somebody get in touch with you and or send it to Kathleen as well.
That doesn't help us.
No, but I can get those answers. Absolutely.
Yes, Ann?
If this is a bridge fuel and it comes time when gas is no longer used, which I doubt will ever happen, but were that to occur, where would be the funds for Vermont Gas to pay for the concreting or removal of these pipes?
I can't answer that as well. I don't think that, I know that there's practices, accounting practices in terms of abandonment, removal, and that kind of thing. Again, I would have to get, the select board answers to that question.
Well, I think in connection with solar farms, for example, I may be wrong about this, but I understand that they have to post some type of bond so that when the panels reach the end of their useful life, there can be some removal, and that's paid for in advance.
Right. I can definitely get you those answers. I'm part of those budget meetings and accounting meetings, but I don't want to speak in error here, so I just as soon get you those answers to those questions.
Okay, and we're talking about two easements, so just in
Right.
essence of time here, can we keep to the subject? Are there any concerns about those specific easement areas? And if not, maybe a motion to begin with the 1061 notification?
Yeah.
And then we'll have time to receive the further information and do a final approval at a later time.
So you're looking for the motion?
Is that the motion?
I'm looking for a motion.
You want to try it, Nick?
I can try it, sure. I'll make a motion in order to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to work with council to prepare a notice of conveyance of real estate for 77 Main Street and for 0 Main Street in accordance with 24 VSA 1061.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
Do we have
Okay.
to talk about that it will be posted in 3 different, no?
That's the
That's
procedures.
cool. Okay, great.
Any other comments before we vote? Okay, all in favor of beginning the process, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Huh?
Was that a unanimous yes?
That was unanimous.
Yes.
No, it wasn't.
No.
Oh, it wasn't?
Sorry, I
Laura
didn't hear.
dissented.
Oh, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
So Kathleen, I assume
I
you
should have.
that's common meeting. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Laura, I couldn't hear it either.
Sorry. I thought I heard something over there.
Yeah, I was like, nope, so confident.
Well, I could hear.
Good evening. Good evening. You're going to talk to us about Halpin Road?
Sure. We'll try to keep you on schedule here.
That's shot.
Okay, I'm going to try to get you back closer to schedule.
Managing the late.
So funny.
In June, we received a $175,000 grant from the state, from VTrans, for a replacement of a culvert on Halpin Road. This is about a couple tenths of a mile north of Painter-Halpin intersection. So part of making this process move is that there's an agreement the town has to make with the state for that $175,000 grant. So our project cost estimate on this was $227,000, and the maximum grant is $175,000 or 10%. So we will probably be right around that number of $175,000. So what we need from you tonight is to authorize Kathleen to sign the grant agreement with the town so we can proceed.
So moved.
Second.
There you go.
Moved and seconded. Comments, questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was unanimous.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to
You wanna go
talk
into
about
the-
the capital improvement budget if you want, with
Okay.
Dan's help and Heather's help.
Yep.
I don't want any part of it.
You catch me if I do something odd.
Sure.
The Infrastructure Committee voted to recommend the adoption of the FY17 Water Capital Improvement Budget of $212,000. There's information in your packet, but I think there's several different projects. The water monitoring project, which is going to be keeping 24/7 watch on chlorine and fluoride, right?
More accurately, it is going to monitor chlorine and fluoride, but it is 24/7 on the chlorine. That's what's the
Right.
requirement.
There's improvements to wells 3 and 4, and then work, hopefully, to fix the concrete top of the water reservoir. I think the important thing to note is that the committee was really spending a lot of time discussing the need for additional investment in capital improvements, knowing that we're not taking in enough fees in water in order to cover our capital improvement needs. But what we've committed to is hopefully in the next 6 months, the committee will be working with staff to prioritize the capital water main replacement project list, exploring ways to finance the projects through different combinations, and working with different people from the state to help us do that. So our capital improvement budget is good for right now, but there'll be more things to come. I'm not sure if people had questions about the information that was provided.
It was a pretty nice synopsis, but did everybody get a chance to read the packet?
Yeah.
It was very thoroughly detailed. And
I mean, I think that there's a lot there. There's a lot where we wound up taking several meetings to go through everything. And I think it's good to note that this is the first time that our committee is really going through this process. And so I think at the end of it, we all felt pretty good about where we're going. But going through it, it was a little uncomfortable. But what you guys have is the good results, so.
So you said a little more would be coming. By that you meant?
Because of this next 6 months, and we won't be changing the capital improvement budget, but we will be looking at prioritizing projects. There really is a method to how you should change the water rates, either the base rate or the usage rate, based on your capital improvement budgets, based on your regular operating budget, and what should you be financing, what should you be allocating to the different things, and we just really need to spend some time taking an overall look at the system and prioritizing those, and then we can kind of go through the methodology. So it'll be a different way to approach those projects than we have in the past.
I'm not sure if this is the time to ask the question, but regarding establishing what you've used, and the rate you would be paying. There's new equipment, right, that we're transitioning to so that we can accurately measure how much water is being used?
Correct.
So if somebody opts out of that, do they have to pay more for being measured manually?
I think we're still working out what they would be paying.
Right, but the short answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay, because I've heard some resistance to that I feel
Yeah.
you might want to explore.
Yeah, I think we were aware of that going into it. I think, and we can talk about more about that. It's in the operating budget, so maybe I can touch more on that as we get to that point. But this is the capital improvement one. But I hear what you're saying, and I think we anticipated that as well. But also there's real costs to having to go out and read that meter by hand versus being able to take it at real time. I mean, it would be coming in.
Cellular system.
So it would be up to them whether they want to opt out or opt in.
Okay, well, I have more that I can share, but I won't do it now.
I think that would be great,
Okay.
and I think we would take all of that as we're putting all of that information together under advisement. It would be very helpful.
The committee did want to create opt-out policies.
Correct.
And discuss the fees that will be coming up at an upcoming meeting.
Yep. So all that would be helpful.
Okay.
So also the objective would be so that if someone chooses to opt out now and someone chooses in 6 months, we have a consistent policy and fee that applies to everyone. And it wouldn't change over time.
So if people are comfortable, I would like to make the motion to approve the FY17 water capital improvement budget of $212,000 as recommended by the Infrastructure Committee.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments on that? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So for the wastewater capital improvement budget, it is a budget of $490,480. There's a lot of supplemental information again, but there's a corroded influent piping at the wastewater treatment plant that's included in there, plus 2 pump station projects, one on Halpin Road and one in Painter Hills.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if people had questions about that.
How long is that section of pipe that's been deteriorating?
That would be
It was original construction with a plant. And what it is it's a cement lined steel pipe. And there's a prior project that we completed last fall was to try to solve the generation of hydrogen sulfide, sulfuric acid, basically, that would eat steel and concrete very quickly.
Yeah, it does.
And so we did that, and then at the time that was done, we did a camera inspection. We couldn't really tell if there was any compromise in the pipe, but after a spring rain, we started to see the asphalt sink. And so we went and opened it up and basically have lace for the pipe, so it pretty much ate it up. So should have been like an SDR, PVC SDR or similar product. Why would you use a steel pipe in a situation like that? Anyway, that's maybe too much information, but
We saw some of that on our tour. It was kind of amazing.
Yeah, totally.
the electrical standards, that were corroding there, well, that wastewater comes through that pipe to get to that splitter box,
Right.
and it ate it up fairly quickly.
How long is that length?
It's got to be maybe 100, 130 feet, something like that. So,
With the pipe on, is it just washing in that area?
now what happens when the water came through there's an inspection box that we replaced last fall. When the water came through that, it cascaded down like a little waterfall of about 1.5 to 2 feet, and that churning makes the hydrogen sulfide gas oxygenate and turn into sulfuric acid, and it's just horribly corrosive on concrete and steel. And so that junction box that we had repaired last year was just eaten up. The rebar was showing through it, and so on and so forth. And so anything downstream of that had an air or a place above that, in other words, where the water is in the pipe, that air gap above that is where that hydrogen sulfide and sulfuric acid gas is going to go to work really quick. And that's what ate the top of the pipe up, which collapsed the pavement. So.
I was just trying to think of logistics of how you take care of this. So it's, what do you put in a parallel line and then?
We'll have,
transition
yeah,
over?
bypass line, and then redo that section, and then turn, flip it back. So, yeah, it's a bypass.
Yeah. Okay. Hard to argue that one.
Want a motion?
I do.
I would make a motion that, to approve the fiscal 17 wastewater capital improvement budget of $490,480 as recommended by the Infrastructure Committee.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments, questions? Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Okay, so the FY17 water budget of $1,325,344. We did some tweaking of this, but this budget is trying to raise, we're gonna need to raise an additional $32,741 in water fees, and that will come in after this discussion, but we felt pretty strongly that the budget, the way it is reflective of our needs at this time. So instead of trying to reduce anything else, I mean, really, there's not much else we can do with this. We just need to raise the money to do it. That's our recommendation. So I'm not sure if people had specific questions about some of the different additions there. You'll find that the water charges are more, most of the increases are from regular staff and personnel, insurance, all different, I'm trying to think, all the different things associated with that. I don't think there's anything major. There's some additional money for the operating supplies for the maintenance of the mains. Cellular reading fee, and some of the contractual services that are related to the work that we're trying to get done.
Okay.
So it's important to note that there hasn't been a water rate increase in, what, 5-6 years?
Since 2009.
Since 2009.
So the board recently, approved the increase of the water fund and the sewer fund for the metering project at our May 21st meeting. So later on, after this, we're going to be talking about potentially increasing the water fund in the base rate by $1.96 and the usage rate for water of 6 cents. There's no increase that we're proposing for the wastewater rates because the wastewater operating budget is very close to, and there's no need to raise those at this time.
And the Infrastructure Committee did do its due diligence in asking staff to go back and make sure that this was the bare bones budget that we could present.
We definitely put staff through the ringer, which I'm sure they would admit freely.
Said that.
Go ahead.
Can I just make one point, and that's that I think we're still a little low in the budget on total maintenance of main in the operating budget. Given our actual for FY 2015 of 51,806, our actual of this year we're at 132,377. We've recommended an increase from 30,000 to 40,000. I'm concerned that we're still not increasing that number as much as we should, but given the history and our lack of raising rates and our need to raise rates and where we are now, I think we have to be good with it, but there is some potential concern there on my part for that. But in an effort to not have to raise any additional funds, leave it where it is. So
yeah.
You deferred that project, okay. Yeah, so water is really an important resource that we have to invest in.
And I think we're going to be spending that time looking at the system and really getting a better handle of how we can go forward, because there's some big projects that we could really use and need and have to get them done. So I think part of that overall big picture look will then drive how the rates will then come back down, and we'll come back hopefully with a really good plan that everyone, as Ashley from the state said, gosh, I don't know if she was helping us. She said rate setting should be equitable, defendable, and sustainable. And I think for me that's my goal, that whatever we come up with, it really needs to meet those three.
Can I make another?
Yeah.
So one other, as we go forward with prioritizing those projects and hopefully finding funding and doing some of those projects, hopefully that will limit this operation of mains. I feel maybe we've been putting more Band-Aids on than we should. I would like to see us at some point have a threshold, just as an example, you put 2 Band-Aids in within a mile of Maine, that triggers some response to putting it on a project for replacement. So we aren't spending so much Band-Aid money. We're just investing in upkeep, and then at that point, maybe that $40,000 at some point in the future is enough, but we don't know at this point. Just another thought.
So to bring it back to the water operating budget, if there's no other questions, I'd love to make the motion for us to approve the FY17 water budget of $1,325,344 as recommended by the Infrastructure Committee.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
So then we come to the wastewater operating budget, and like I said before, there's no recommended change in the wastewater rates other than the needed one for the metering project. So our recommendation is for $2,862,514, and I'm not sure if people had specific questions about the operating budget.
Any questions there?
No.
Motion?
So the motion would be to approve the FY17 wastewater budget of $2,862,514 as recommended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
Whoever
I will
said
take that.
first.
That was pretty cool.
Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
All right, so
Rates.
should we attack the wastewater and wastewater rates? So if you recall, in May, we went through and discussed the meter reading technology replacement project. And at that time, thank you, Kathleen, we had approved increasing the water fund base rate by $3.56 and the sewer fund by $3.60 to cover those costs for both sides of the meters. There was no proposed increase for the usage rate at that time. So for now, in order to cover the FY17 water budget, we're proposing an increase of the base rate of $1.96, no increase for the sewer fund, and an increase of the usage rate for the water fund of 6 cents. So what would happen to the base rate would be for a water fund would go from previous to our May decision of $30 to $3.52, and respectively for the sewer of $36 to $39.60. And the usage rate would go from the current rate of $2.98 to $3.04, and the sewer fund would remain the same at $7.78. The money is to raise the additional $32,741 in water fees that we need. And for the typical residential water and wastewater customer, they would see an increase of approximately $9.59 per quarter in their utility bill, from $149.92 to $159.51, based on the use of 10,800 gallons per quarter. And there's a really nice chart that I'm not going to read. And does anyone have any questions?
I'd make a comment.
Yeah.
I thought this was really well prepared, okay? Investing in infrastructure, many places it's not being done. And sooner or later, you're going to pay the piper on that one. We're going to pay it with...
Did you say pipe?
No. Piper. Oh, good one. Nice, Laura.
See what you did there?
Pay the pipe. Okay.
Nice.
Sooner or later, there's going to be some kind of event that's going to cost us a lot of money. I thought this was so clearly presented when I went through it the other day. I read all the documentation that went into it, and it was just a great document to understand what you were doing, and I support the rate increase, and I support all the work that you did on it.
Well, thanks, Donna. I have to agree, staff did a great job getting it all together.
There was a lot of sausage making.
We were cooking.
You're seeing the end product. Enjoy.
Yes. But again, I think it's important to note that the rates haven't changed since 2009. Right. And so, it's a long time coming, and like I said, we're not done looking at everything yet, but this is a good place to be today.
And a big thanks to Kathleen and Dan and Jackie, because they really put a lot of time and our suggestions at the committee level were not always clear. And it was a good process, so thanks to them for sticking with us.
Sure.
Okay.
Are there any other comments? Okay. How about a motion?
I make a motion to approve the FY17 water and wastewater rates as recommended by the Infrastructure Committee. Base rates of $3.52 for water. Oh, sorry, $35.52 for water, and $35.52 and $39.60 for wastewater?
I think there's a typo.
There's a typo in there. I
Yep.
was going to say.
$35.52 in there.
And
Yep.
so $35.52 for water and $39.60 for wastewater, and a usage rate increase to $3.04 per 1,000 gallons of water, of up to more than 3,000 gallons per quarter, and no change in the wastewater usage charge of $7.78 per 1,000 gallons above the 3,000 gallons included in the base rate. Whew, sorry, I hope I got that right.
I'll second.
There you go.
I'm like,
And
holy
then fix
cow.
it. first.
And then fix it later, please.
I'm just checking your motion.
I think one was
The
too
motion,
many.
the motion tracks, your motion tracks
Okay.
what we've been briefed up above, so I
Thank
think
you.
you're good.
All right.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I seconded.
Seconded, okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I do think that your committee did a very nice job of laying it out. I was able to follow it in the packet, so I didn't have that many questions when we got here,
A
so.
lot of that is thanks to Kathleen.
And I do think it's long been needed to do a full analysis of water and wastewater.
What we're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
I
Good.
think we'll get there.
All right, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
And Dan, did you want to take the telemetry controller?
Sure. I'm requesting the board to pursue a quote from Champlin Associates for $46,300 for a telemetry control system for our water well pumps and our reservoir. What these controllers are electronic boxes that reside at Public Works and then at the reservoir and at the well houses. And it basically, they all talk to each other by radio waves. Reservoir gets a certain level, turn on this pump at this level, turn off, so on and so forth. That's what these controllers do. So the one that operates well 3 and well 4 has died, and that technology has been superseded, and they no longer support and no longer manufacture those controllers. So this proposal is to replace the controllers at the well house and Chipman Hill. The one at Public Works was redone last year, so that's all good to go. Actually, they all match then. We also took the opportunity when we worked with Champlin Associates for this quote is to manufacture, have those controllers manufactured. So when we get into this water monitoring project that we just talked about, the chlorine and fluoride, that data has to be relayed to Public Works. It has to be downloadable, printable, and sent to the state monthly. So these controllers will manage that, and we figured we'd do it all at once rather than having it done separately, which would increase the cost. So the request is for the $46,300 to get that project going.
Can I make a comment? So didn't we agree in Infrastructure Committee that we would recommend a not to exceed price because there was some question in electrical, and didn't I make a motion that we would?
Your motion was for $55,000 to include the electrical, but that will be bid separately from this piece.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So we're good with this?
Yeah.
46.3?
Right.
Okay.
Because this is just for their part of that. Okay, got it.
So
Thank you.
Can I get a motion then?
I'll make a motion that we proceed with an order, or to award a sole source contract to Champlin Associates for the purchase of 2 water system telemetry controllers and a chlorine fluoride monitor RTU for a total cost of $46,300.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
I
Okay.
have a different number on mine.
Yeah, it's the
We went over this in Infrastructure Committee.
typo.
No, I'm just looking at your
Yeah.
number is different than my number.
We caught this over the weekend, and so.
I did not.
And remember in
Okay.
Infrastructure Committee, it also came up.
I'm
so
just
the-
fascinating, and I knew the number was different, but I
The
didn't.
quote actually says 46,300, so I'm good with the 46,300.
I just was surprised you had it written on yours, so, okay.
Okay.
You have to wait until
I-
Tuesday afternoon
I
to print your
know.
stuff out.
I was ahead of myself, darn it.
Since I was at meetings until Sunday, I didn't get home till Sunday night. I didn't read it until yesterday, so I was right on at 46.3.
Can we get a second?
All in favor signify by
Can we
saying
get a
aye.
second on that?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
okay.
Those opposed?
I meant to say aye.
Aye.
I saw the hands
I
wave.
said it in my head,
I
but not out
counted it as
loud.
unanimous. Pedestrian beacon lights.
Sure. I went out and got some proposals from 3 suppliers of rapid flashing beacon lights, and for the public, they are those little gizmos that you put at crosswalks with the pedestrian signs and a push button. And there's a set of LEDs on each side of the pedestrian signs, and Kathleen's might be getting a picture up. But you push the button and they flash very rapidly and brightly, and it's to catch the attention of the motorists to stop for the pedestrians. We looked at a couple places to put them, and due to the cost estimate, a little higher than budget, we're going to only be able to do one at the moment, and I believe that's going to be at Cross Street at South Pleasant Street, right at the end of the bridge. So the proposals are from Tapco, Seso, and Carmana. I love that name, Carmana. It's just, yeah, anyway. TAPCO was the cheaper of the three at $5,477.08. And so what you get from that, for that price is the posts, the anchor posts that the square tube post goes into, the four flashing beacons, and the solar collector that sits on top. There's two of those, one on each post, on each side of the each side of the crosswalk, and the battery and the controller that relays the radio signals from one side of the street to the other. So at this point, I'm going to ask you to approve TAPCO for the $5,477.08.
Do we have to, in our recommendation, we need to approve the location?
Yes.
In addition to the...
Mm-hmm.
And I
So-
wanted to note, too, that Laura Sormley came and Chief Hanley came, and we had a great discussion, coordinated efforts, and the committees and staff will also be talking with the Downtown Improvement District for any future ones. So it was really nice to have a coordinated effort.
I like these, they work quite well. My one question is, what's the service requirements on them? I mean, there's a battery that's ultimately got to be replaced, the solar collectors are ultimately going to be replaced, so as we start getting into these, what do we need to plan for?
Battery life is estimated about 4 years.
Okay.
This unit has the larger solar collector of the bunch.
Mm-hmm.
There really won't be much shading down here at Cross and South Pleasant. If we do talk about one by the Middlebury Inn, the one on the green does get some shading from the trees in the green. So I wanted to go with a unit that had a larger collector, so in case we had shaded areas, we might work okay. But the battery life is just a function of battery life and how it's made. The number of actuations per day is is the key to how long it lasts from day to day. And it's like they're rated like 600 pushes a day, which I doubt we would hit that.
So it's a condition of that. I know one of the vendors said that their battery was an ion battery and lasted longer, but you preferred this vendor because of the size of the solar array, Dan?
Right.
And you can see the flashing light from either direction, correct?
Right.
Which was an important feature, too.
And it has a little LED on the side of the tube. So if you're looking at the traffic's this way, and you see that LED on the side that the pedestrian sees, there's a little LED. So when you push the button, the pedestrian knows that beacon is flashing. So it's just call it a pedestrian indicator. They get to see without having to look. Oh, is it going? Yeah, they'll see it from the side.
And what we're getting for the money is the solar collector, the battery, not the sign, because we already have the sign, right? Or do they send the whole thing anyway, and that's what you're paying for?
Right. You're getting the control box, the panel, the beacons on both sides of the signpost, and then on the end of this is the little teeny LED that flashes that lets the pedestrian know that it's activated.
So we put it on the pole that we already have?
Huh?
Do we put it on the pole we already have, or you have to replace it?
We're going to replace. The poles are part of this.
It is, okay.
Part of this quote.
These things also come with, because the point of shadowing is what I was wondering about, because I have this solar light at the front of my front door, which works incredibly well in the summer and doesn't work in the winter when you want it to work. Do these things also have a backup with a line feed to them? Do they have a power line feed to them, or is it just purely reliance on that?
Yeah, pure land solar.
All right.
Donna.
Yeah, my question is about the location, okay? I read some of the reasoning, but the number of people crossing between South Pleasant on the Cross Street area versus the Middlebury Inn, I know it was more expensive, I think, or more difficult installation you set up at the Middlebury Inn, no?
Not really, no.
So what was did someone measure or count the number of people that are crossing? Was it more important we get more foot traffic crossing over at Cross Street than we do up at the MiddleburyInn?
It was the Downtown Improvement District asked for it, didn't they?
I think they favored the Middlebury Inn, I thought.
Oh, okay.
But we picked
Well,
the other ones.
they actually favored downtown Merchants Row and Main Street was
Okay.
actually their request,
Oh,
right?
that's right, you're right.
Yeah, so, and there were several issues with that installation.
There is one with that,
That's
for
right.
sure.
And so with our recommendation, we are asking for their support for this location, because that's not where they ultimately wanted it.
But how do we decide on the location?
Well, actually, there were two locations. I mean, Safe Routes to School
Yeah.
felt strongly about this location.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of just evaluating the various feedback we got from parents and families, you know, that were walking and rolling to school, that location was an important location, and that's how we came to choose that. And we appealed for funding at the Downtown Improvement District, and they said, oh, yeah, and let's do this other one, too.
Right, that's what I
You know,
remember.
so, and we were aware of that, too, but we knew we had to phase them, so.
I am concerned about the crossing.
Yeah.
I think it's the most dangerous crossing I've ever been at the Middlebury end. You cannot, no matter what you do, when you're trying to get across that road, you can look one way, you can look the other, you can start, and if there's a car coming up the hill and turning, you never see it, and nor do they see you.
Which
You
one
do
are you
not see
talking
it, you
about?
make that turn.
That's where we get confused, because there are so many lines
That's exactly
there
right.
that we have to be sure we're all talking about the same
Well, I'm talking
crosswalk.
about-
Crossing from the green to
Right.
the inn.
Right in front of the Middlebury Inn.
The one that where you go, then you step up,
Yeah, or the stairs, or
got
there's the ramp.
stairs. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
You've
Yeah.
got traffic coming in three directions, I believe, at that point.
No.
You've got traffic going back and forth, north and south along Route 7.
Two northbound.
Well, Brian's talking about the other one, which we're not talking about. We're not talking about that one where you walk up the steps. We're not talking about
We're
that.
That's
talking
the
about the
one,
green.
that, you're talking about the one in front of the
That's-
Congregational Church, right?
Right.
That's where I
That
was
one's
Okay,
confused.
okay,
We really have
okay.
to
Dan,
look at
you
those.
explain.
Okay, so the one by the Middlebury Inn is when if you are in the green and you want to walk to the Middlebury Inn, you cross over the northbound Pleasant, and there's two northbound Pleasant Street spaces. And then you cross, and there's stairs you can go up to hit the sidewalk, or you can do the ramp
Right.
to get to the sidewalk. That's in the front of the inn. That was one location.
Okay. I
That's
think
the tough one.
I think that's the tough one that I'm talking about. And
Yep.
again, I'm not going to, I know we're running late. You made the decision for the other one, but I hope we haven't given up on that one, because
Oh,
I
no,
really feel like that's a really dangerous
Yeah.
cross.
Yeah.
It's the next one on the list.
This is, I mean, they authorized 10,000, so it's not a stretch to get a second if this one works. Is your theory that you're going to try this and see how it works? Is that what and this would be our first
Yes.
Okay.
foray into using the rapid flashing beacons versus flags and other things we've tried in the past?
Yes.
Right.
And we're only $1,000 short of having a second one, so it's not a huge gap, but it is a gap, so.
Right. And we may be able to go back to the DIDC. I'm pretty sure we could maybe go back to them and request that additional money. Maybe you want to install one first, see how it works. The only thing I'll say about the Middlebury Inn one is that of all the places where, for sight, a flashing light would be beneficial, there's the one, because it would really help the people coming out of Main Street about to make a turn.
The
I
only-
wondered if there would be economy of scale of getting
That's-
more than one.
I'm not going to keep
to.
We just wanted to communicate
Just
with
wanted to
them
say.
first.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to Donna's point, I think the same thing applies in that situation as what Chief Hanley was talking about with people coming down Merchants Row. They won't see it. So people coming up around from Main Street aren't gonna see it until they get, because it's not in that direction. So just something to consider in that location. It's only gonna be in the north and southbound lanes, so when you're coming up around there, you're not gonna see it probably until you see the pedestrian in the crosswalk, so.
Right,
Well,
right.
we can
right.
leave that discussion on Merchants Row and Main, because that's got a whole more, it's got a lot more issues, I think, than just
No,
the two crosswalks.
the same issue applies in
Right.
this one though also.
So,
Looking for a motion?
Yeah.
I think that we're ready for a motion.
Okay.
Well, I think we all agree that we need more safety at some of these crosswalks, so let's try something.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, there's two motions. Do you want to, should we vote them individually, or do you want them as two combined?
Two separate, I think.
Yeah, go ahead with the two separate.
Two separate?
Yeah.
Okay, motion, first one, approve the Infrastructure Committee's recommendation to install a pair of rapid flashing beacons at Cross crosswalk at the South Pleasant Street intersection.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Second motion is to
second
award a contract to TAPCO Traffic and Parking Control Company Incorporated for the purchase of the 2 sets of lights for a total cost of $5,477.08.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'm finished.
Timeline, how fast do you think we would get something in time for school, hopefully?
Said lead time roughly 20 business days.
Oh, good. Yeah, so before
we'll
school's
see.
in session.
We'll see, yeah. Try.
Be good.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh,
There's a hand up.
One question. As a member of DIDC, I was wondering if there is any timing thing that could be an assistance with the DIDC potentially looking into your additional funding for a second one before it's purchased, or if that's something that would necessarily happen as a second stage.
There wasn't a discount for multiple units purchased at once, right?
No, but there might be, of course, freight is always, is always estimated, and that's included in this proposal, so there might be a small freight savings if you bought them together.
How much was freight?
Freight was $350. They're
Ooh.
coming out of Wisconsin.
that's what I was wondering, that's
Or
why.
Can you
Texas
can
or
you get a-
Oregon or whatever. I mean, they're from.
Can you get us a quote for a second one and
It would be
see?
it would be the same, but
No, but for
there's some shipping.
whether they would do it for one freight bill. I mean, you're not talking about that much extra weight strapped to a pallet.
Right.
So it might be the same freight bill. It might be a $350 savings.
Right. So I guess if
I've already sent a letter or a message of support from my position, but I wonder if the other members of the DIDC could be quickly.
Well, we'd have to get together a meeting to have a vote on
To
that.
make it
Yeah.
open meeting law and all
we
that
can
stuff.
we can wait, whatever that is.
I guess what would inform us whether it would be worth waiting a week or whatever it takes to gain a meeting and consensus would be, is there savings or not? So they could give you a quote fairly quickly, I would think.
Yeah. Usually, this gentleman is persistent on where we're at with this project, so he's
hungry to sell.
He's an adept salesman. He will
Good.
get back very quickly.
Okay.
Okay. Donna, Parks and Rec Committee.
Look at the length of the agenda.
I'm good, yeah. I
Did
was
you
just
have
gonna
anything
suggest
that you wanted to,
Oh, I would have one thing, I think, okay? I looked at the length of the agenda, and I thought that, you don't need a billion details. The one thing I think, and I had put it down as a possible motion at the end. We had a meeting, the biggest concentration of our meeting was getting our house in order, basically, but looking at the structure of the Parks and Recreation Committee. And we came up with a recommendation of having 7 members and 4 ex officio members. And what I wanted to see is, if you look, the first 7 members would consist of this: a member from the Select Board, 2 members at large from Middlebury, 1 East Middlebury member, 1 member from the ACSU, 1 Memorial Sports Center member, and then 1 at-large member from within the ACSU townships, for 7 people. And then the ex officio members are the Ilsley Library, Addison County Central Teens, the Parks and Recreation Director, and the Town Manager. So the 7 members, if it were amenable to you, I would like approval on that this evening, and we'll let that go for the report for the night.
Okay.
motion to approve that? You
Approve
wanted
the Parks and Recreation Committee members as stated.
All right.
That's just those right there.
Do you want me to read that again?
Jess, you have to read it again?
I think we can hand it to, you just
Okay.
read it, but to,
All right,
Okay.
as recommended by the Recreation,
Yep.
Parks and Recreation
So
Committee.
moved, so moved.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Moved and
I think
seconded.
there might be a
Question?
comment.
So I did comment in the board member concerns last meeting, and I know we're really seriously late, and I just had a concern with the discrepancy between duties and responsibilities that stated residents of the town of Middlebury and then allowing another at-large member from another town. So I just wanted to see consistency. If it's town of Middlebury, then it should be town of Middlebury. So that was my only comment.
Right, and if you look at this, we have a minimum of 4 members from the town of Middlebury, so you'll always have a maximum number on the committee. There would always be a majority, but you could actually, in this, by looking at this, you could have up to 7 members. They could all be from Middlebury.
Okay, so at a motion and a second. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of approving the committee structure, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Heather, did you have something from the town school committee? I think we would like to hear just about the thoughts on, as a minimum, the thoughts on student participation.
Yeah, in the interest of time, we can just talk quickly about that. It was well-received, although the committee was more supportive of the idea of allowing a non-voting member on the select board, and as opposed to DRB or Planning Commission. But Shelburne was not doing that. They were not allowing that student participation on the select board or the ethics committee. That's what was stated in the article. So we left it that we would research the reasoning for why, and if there was some statute limitation for not allowing their participation. Obviously it would be non-voting, but could they still participate or not? It's, feedback from the school was that students would be more interested in a select board than other committees. So I think we need to answer that question of what's allowed and then move forward.
It surprises me. I thought that maybe the DRB especially would be appealing, but
I thought so too. That was my take. But I think there might also be some need for educating the students of what those committees do and see where the interest lies. And there seemed to be some discussion about, chicken and egg. What comes, what do we put in place first, the opportunity, or see where the interest is? And there was some disagreement in that area. School board seemed to think we should say we have an opportunity for a student on the select board and get interest, and my thought was that we should see where students might want to participate and then go from there. So there was a little, difference of opinion on which way to go there. But they were very supportive of the idea, although also cautious that students are already, students that would probably be appropriate for the position are already probably overcommitted in sports and other activities, and we should just be conscious of that, time constraint.
You see that a lot with my kids going through school. So.
But I think we'll move forward and
Yeah.
see how we could maybe incorporate it going
I think
forward.
it's like all of us. What we'd like to do and what we actually can do in a day is very different.
So do I need to does anyone else have any questions about that meeting?
Okay. Development Review Board. Ruth Whitney resigned from the Development Review Board, and we advertised for individuals interested in being nominated to fill the vacant position. And our current DRB alternates, Ann Taylor and Gary Baker, both have sat through this very long meeting. I should put this at the front of the schedule. We just wanted you to feel the pain a little bit, I guess.
Part of your test.
And they're both interested in fulfilling the position. So we can choose at this point, if we would like, to nominate both candidates and make a decision and fill the position at our August 9th meeting. I think provide you an opportunity to say something, if you like, about thoughts on filling the position.
It's still open, right? So someone else can.
Unless we fill it on the 9th. So, I mean, we could.
But they would have to be nominated tonight.
Right.
So
In
we're
order-
essentially.
So if we nominate the two of you tonight, then.
Then there's-
Then that's closed. The nominations are closed for the position.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Why, did you have someone else you wanted to?
No, I just thought it was a possibility.
Well, I move that we nominate both of you for the DRB.
I'll second.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Whoever became the full member, would the other willing to continue as alternate? Okay.
We're needed most meetings.
And you guys, it was Anne that was the first alternate, and Gary was the second alternate?
And although both of us have been at all the meetings since we were appointed, we've also both been needed at all the meetings.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the appointment of one of us and one of us remaining as an alternate will be sufficient, or whether you need to find
Another.
a second alternate after that.
It sounds like we probably should put the word out for that.
That's a good point. If you've both been needed at every meeting since we appointed you as the alternates, then
Yeah.
member participation, we need to make.
Some of it, Ruth has had a conflict with her job.
Okay, so Ruth has not
But
been
she
able
was
to.
out a lot.
Okay.
And then John, by his position as sheriff, has conflicts.
Yeah.
Actually, I guess it's unfair to say we were both needed. There were sufficient members to conduct the business without our participation, but we made up the number of 7 each time.
Okay, so there was a quorum there always, but, okay, all right, understood.
And that's what I found in the time that I served, is there's often at least one member missing, so the alternate is a big job, is an important job on that committee.
Some people have lives.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you. You choose your time wisely in volunteering. That's what it is.
So we have a motion to nominate both Ann and Gary, and had a second on that. So if there are no other comments, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Very good. And there's a letter, thank you letter for Ruth Whitney. Did everybody already sign that?
I think it's in the
Okay.
red folder there.
Would you like us to attend on August 9th? And if so, whereabouts on the agenda might?
So perhaps we should put you right up front.
Well, yes,
We'll be
we'll make sure
in-
we get you up front. I didn't realize you were both going to be here tonight, and
It's very interesting,
so-
it just is very lengthy what you have to do.
So
tonight was lengthier than
We're going to be in East
normal.
Middlebury on the 9th.
So you get to travel out to the far reaches of the...
Far-
Might even be closer.
Uh-huh. Okay.
You can walk to the meeting.
I can. I'm very excited.
Town manager's report.
We vote.
What, you don't want the check warrants first?
Did I skip that?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
I don't
Okay.
think we voted either.
Quickly.
No, we did.
Did we?
Says here.
Did we vote?
Okay.
I thought we voted.
Heather and I apparently didn't.
What's What's that?
I'm sorry.
They're questioning if we voted. I thought we just voted.
Okay.
You thought we voted on the check warrant?
No.
No.
On
just
Ann and
let it
Gary.
go. Let it go.
Let's go forward.
Oh, did we vote on the nominations?
Yeah.
We did.
I think we've all exceeded our limits.
9:30, the bell rung, and we're done.
I'm not gonna.
I failed you all to keep you here this
I'm not
late.
gonna report on public safety and health either. You're gonna have to wait for the next meeting on that. So, which is fine, just. All right, so the warrant report, we're in good order. I've reviewed the checks. The total expenditures were $667,061.32. Accounts payable, $559,325.97, and payroll was $107,735.35. So I move that we approve the check warrants.
I'll second.
Didn't you even move it? So moved. Oh, you said it.
I
Sorry.
moved
Okay.
I tell you, we're done.
We're all done.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Kathleen, can you take us home?
Okay, yeah. As I mentioned before, August 9th, Select Board meeting at the East Middlebury United Methodist Church. And then as Rocket, formerly Ryan Kim, pointed out to us, the renewal of the MBDF position is coming up. And I've discussed with Rob and with Brian and Susan the possibility of forming a committee to focus on the renewal and what the strategy is going to be going forward for that. So that's something I'd like to bring up at the August 9th meeting.
Was I Rob?
Close. Again, we're all losing it.
Yeah, we're all losing it. And that is it for my town manager's report.
Okay. Board member concerns.
Not a concern, but really related to public safety and health. We're going to be talking about the Canine Response Unit, and I did put in the Select Board packet a little piece of information that's going to go out that'll be informing for you too. So if there's anything that you do want to weigh in on that, just know that we're going to be reviewing that and recommending whether we're going forward with that. You'll recall that there was some ambiguity about that. So I'm also just stating this for the public too, that on August 8th, at our next Public Safety and Health Committee meeting at 4 o'clock at the Middlebury Police Department, we'll be looking at that. And our noise ordinance, that's the other thing we'll be looking at again. So those two things coming up, so you're aware of it.
Donna?
No more concerns tonight.
Nick?
I'm concerned out.
Okay. Susan?
Just looking forward to having the meeting out in East Middlebury. It's always fun to walk across the street to the meeting.
I am all set, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for sticking with it. I thought we had a pretty full agenda, and I guess it proved true. Got a lot of important things done tonight. So I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.